after 15 years of having these two bikes basically in storage, it was time to drag them out, kick them in the guts and make sure they fired up. There's a lot of history to both of these bikes. One is the 1997 World Enduro Championship winning bike, full factory motor, as in prototype. The motor didn't exist at the time when it was put together. The other bike is the 98 model ISDE Overall winning 125 machine, which again is a factory machine, but not as of a special of an engine because it's not such a one-off. So the bikes have a lot of history to them. We see them here going ahead, and we've done our magazine test the last yesterday, and the bike came through flying colours. Now we've got some unique facts about them. They basically sat there for all this time. You can see the oil from the leaking fork seals on that bike. Not bad. Actually, the other bike, this is the 97 bike we're looking at the moment. The other bike actually had fork seals like that the day before, and I did the credit card, business card trick of pop the dust seal and drop it down in there and get any gunge out of the seals, and it stopped leaking, as you can see over here. Did a day of riding yesterday, no oil on it basically. So if only I had done that with the 97 model, would have been good. The 97 model engine, you can see all the welds there as the engine that was built a week before the World Championship started, and it was one of those ones there. They didn't expect me to be riding a 125 that year, or no one told the factory, so I went to pick the bike up and there was no bike there to have, so they had to put the engine together from leftover stuff in the dyno room from the R&D department. You see the old Dell'Auto carburetor cover there, so that was from the 96 model bike. You can see here it's got the it doesn't have the hydraulic clutch. You can see how factory this is, the chain guide with the bolts siliconed in there and holding it in spot. So the only modern generation KTM 125 engine in existence that has a cable clutch with it. Everything else is hydraulic. You can see the handmade brackets here. The radiator hose is the wrong size, the wrong length. It did have a carbon fiber air box on it, but they took that out at the end of the season. The swing arm here, it did used to have a hole in here, a gap in here, but we're the first, or no, the second round, myself and Giovanni Sala, we broke the swing arms, and Eric Bernard as well, and so they've welded this plate on top of it. You can see with the tires still have the original mooses in them. See, fairly flat on the moose, so they've been there for 15 years. We rode it just like that yesterday. Wasn't too much of an issue. We had the bit of an issue here yesterday with the head gasket leaking, but not too bad for after 15 years of sitting around. You can see there's some epoxy in here on the inlet manifold from where they did something to it. This sandcast engines, these random vent holes that aren't on the stock production motor. These radiator hoses are rinky-dink put together. So yeah, she's a true factory bike, a one-off basically. Well, now there's two of them that year, myself and Stefano Passeri. We rode the bikes. It's got the work suspension. I don't know what it is, what kind of suspension settings are in there. You can see in here on the air filter, if you rub your finger on it, the filter's all perished and the foam starts pulling away. You can see that there. So it's original for the way it was 15 years ago, and we went and ripped it yesterday. So it's a great testament to how strong these bikes are nowadays. Now, what we found out of it all, the big improvements that we've seen over the since for the last 15 years is, and like as myself riding and Ben Grabham, Australian off-road superstar, so to speak, getting into the desert racing now, but he's ridden ISDE and World Championship, and he's a multi-time champion. Biggest thing we noticed out of the bikes in the progression in the last 15 years was, one, the foot pegs. Those foot pegs are a lot skinnier than the current day ones. Didn't really alter performance, at least for myself. Grabo seemed to think there was, he felt the difference. I didn't really notice the difference, but you can tell there's there would be a performance difference there in a way, being able to keep your feet on the foot pegs. The side stand, nowhere near as good. The bike was, fell over a few times yesterday because the bottom part here is not big enough. And the other thing that we've really noticed, the main thing, the biggest performance difference was the slippery seat. This vinyl seat was a shocker. It was hopeless compared to the modern day, a more sticky type of vinyl seat going on. Now with the 98 model bike, interesting fact from yesterday, it's got no rim locks in it, but it's actually got tubes. There's a valve there, and we ran no rim locks. And same for the front. There's the valve stem, no rim lock. Now we don't do that on purpose, generally speaking, but the reason why I did it is because it had mousses in it a long time ago, and they disintegrated. So I just put tubes in it so as the bike could, was down at the antique museum, it could keep its tires not going flat. So I couldn't be bothered putting rim locks in it yesterday, so we ripped it for a couple hours yesterday and didn't even have an issue with the tires turning. So that might dispel a few beliefs out there about that type of a thing. So don't advise you doing that in the future. You can see with the suspension here, the titanium nitrate gold coating on it. That was awesome. The factory suspension, these clickers, this is from 15 years ago. So what else? The only damage we did yesterday was the handguard broke off on this bike here. Get it lined up. Yeah, the handguard here. That one there was already broken from just being in storage. Now the plastic on these handguards, it's not what I used that year, those handguards, but it was a see-through plastic, and it was not very good material. So it's all, you can see it's all brittle and all cracked. And I actually thought the one I broke off yesterday, I just tagged just a little bush and it snapped straight away. I actually thought the handguard might fly off as we were driving down to the venue. So other than that, we had a day of ripping around, a really good time. Now in terms of the performance, we had a 2014 KTM 125 SX there. Now, some of you guys probably are wondering what the performance difference was between the 97 pre-production motor, the 98 factory motor, and then the 2014 SX motor. No real difference. Hate to say it. For sure, really, actually, the new motor had a little bit more horsepower, but where we were riding off-road in the whoops, and more so there's a lot of tree roots there, and it's a very technical trail. The new motor, the more higher, more pipey motocross motor was a detriment, and we all felt a lot faster on these older bikes. Now the suspension again as well, the older bikes was so much better, and that was because there was more plush settings there, whereas the motocross bike had the stiffer suspension on it. So taking for granted with that, if we had had a new 125 EXE there, what would have been the difference in 15 years? Not really anything, guys. I was actually surprised by that myself. I would have thought there would have been a lot more difference, especially more so in the handling. And now obviously you think back going, geez, yeah, I used to rip on the bike there, I used to handle so good, but surely it can't be as good as nowadays. And this is that's not to say that today's bikes aren't very good. Today's bikes are so awesome, but really it goes to show how good these bikes were back then, for one, and two, that the progress that we're making with the new bikes nowadays is minimal every year. It's just small little differences there, and we didn't stop watch it yesterday, but if we had have, we probably would have been faster. No, I have to say definitely faster on the old bikes. Believe that one or not, eh? That's a hard one to believe there. So these bikes are real good. You see here with the uniqueness as well on the ignition box here, the factory ignition on it. It's got some sort of a different backing plate. It's just been, the box has been siliconed on there. It's some unique things, especially this 97 model bike. You can see the wheels. It's got the markings from the World Championship that year in 6 days. Same thing here up on the frame. See all the paint marks, all of that. The factory. What we got here? The factory exhaust mount. A little rubber thing. not even a bolt. It's a long bit of threaded bolt, or thread there with 2 locking nuts on this side to use it as a head. So Yeah, there's your factory bike for you, if you know what I mean. But this bike was one mean machine, and yesterday riding it brought back a lot of fun memories, and I'm stoked we had the opportunity to do it. And as I was saying to the guys yesterday, I love it when a good idea turns into a great idea, and I had a blast yesterday. Looking forward to doing this again in another 15 years time and see what the progress is then. I'm sure we'll be able to definitely see some significant progress in the bikes then. We might even actually pull it out in 10 years time and make a 25th anniversary. So it's 15 years since the ISDE, obviously the 97 model, it's 16 years old. But since the KTM factory sent them to me, they've just sat there, full of petrol. The carbies were gummed up. The oil in the transmission had water in it, and actually some of these guys are gonna freak at this. But as I turn it around here, I just took the lid off the transmission cover, and hopefully we can see in there. But if I turn it around and watch the clutch come around, see the color of the oil. It's not golden brown or clear, it's gray, milky color. So there's water in the transmission. We wrapped it yesterday, we cured it yesterday, we flogged it around. These bikes are so good. The modern bike is magnificent. Now, again, I don't advise you to run or ride with crappy oil like that in your engine, so I'm going to change it out now before I put them back into storage. The hydraulic clutch on the 98 model bike, it wasn't working, took the cap off, and there's just gunge in there, so I got a little bit of... I was at my brother's house and he didn't have any oils or any... The closest appropriate oil to being hydraulic clutch oil was some 5-weight fork oil, so whack that in there. I know some of you guys are going to scream at that gun. You can't be serious. You're putting that crap into a World Championship winning bike, and a special bike, but it's all good. I know next time I come back to Australia, I'll have some more time. I'll do a good overhaul of it and that. And next time I ride it, we're definitely going to have to do head gasket and do all the seals and stuff like that throughout the motor. Things, or the rubber's starting to perish. And I was surprised that anything else didn't break yesterday. But I'll tell you one thing, guys. These two bikes absolutely rip. The performance of the engines, what was the difference there is the new model bike actually was a lot more pipey. Now with the 97 model engine, it was actually stronger. It felt stronger down on the lower part of the power band, but I believe that's probably most likely because it was a little fresher in the top end. Whereas the 98 model, not only did I ride the last 5 days of the ISDE with that top end, but then the following year I went and rode the Australian 4-day championship race on that bike. So it's got basically 8 days of use on the top end. So it felt a little bit tame, a little soft actually. But the thing is, it was deceivingly fast. It put the power to the ground. When we were doing the drag races, you see that bad boy. I couldn't keep the front wheel down. It felt slow, but it was very deceiving. Whereas with the when we were lined up, we all swapped around bikes. We all had a shot on each bike, and the results were still always the same. Whereas myself and Grabo, we were pretty much about even. Whereas other old mate Tuffy, well, he pretty much sucked with his skills, so he always was last, and he was always the same distance behind, no matter what bike it was. So yeah, power-wise, things were pretty much the same, and just these engines here were a lot more user-friendly for the off-road situations we were in. Now, no doubt if we rode on a motocross track, we'd notice a little bit more of a difference. But again, a lot of it was it's very deceiving as to how the power was. What the 98 model felt somewhat slow, but it was really hooked up and really put the power down. Now, for me, the 98 model bike is probably the best one at the end of the day, because the you probably laugh at this, but it sounded more factory to me. It had a little bit more of a tinny sound to it, and sounded like more of a factory engine instead of just as a hot engine. You know, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's a little bit of a sentimental value there, or just a feeling type of thing. But in terms of realistically looking at it, the motors are so close together, and I take all three of them, the 97, the 98, or the 2014. I take them any day of the week. But you put in with the sentimental value with the bikes, and everything else that's gone on with them, and that I'd these two bikes definitely have a very special place in my heart, and I'm stoked that I have the opportunity to have them, and I wish I could let all of you guys go for a wrap on them. It'd be they're not mind blowing, but when you put it in the context of 15 years ago, that's a long time ago now. These bikes have stood the test of time, and they're certainly not they haven't lost their ability to go fast. Had such a sensational time yesterday, and it's a little bit sad actually to not go ahead and be able to ride these bikes again. I'd really love to, but they are a memento, and I got to make sure that I keep them that way, and just bring them out for special occasions like in another 10 years time. So hopefully we'll see you all in another 10 years. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I did, and it was great to go ahead and thrash these bikes and smash up the trails down at Stradbroke again. What a sensational time. We'll see you again in another 10 years. Until then, keep on roosting. Give it heaps.